This is Commodity Wrap. I'm Tony St. James. We work our way through a Wednesday with a mixed day of trade. The corn market breaking out of a 3-day losing streak, turning higher on Wednesday. Lower for beans. That's now 4 straight lower closes for soybeans. 6 straight for soy oil. And then the wheat market, lower, at least for Chicago. That's 2 in a row for Chicago. Higher for Kansas City. And Minneapolis lower for the 6th straight session. Cotton market back in the red. And as far as the livestock goes, live and feeder cattle higher and hogs, with the exception of August, higher. Helping us to break this down, Brian Hoops, President, Midwest Market Solutions. Brian, let's start with the row crops here. And you and I, earlier this morning, you mentioned export sales to Taiwan. Was that enough to turn the market around in corn?
Yeah, that wasn't probably enough to do it by itself, but it was a supportive feature for the market. The weekly EIA report I thought was pretty friendly as well. We saw production tick higher, 1.096 million barrels. That's up almost 2% from last week. So the fact that we're using and producing more ethanol, we're using more corn, I think that is a combination with better export business to maybe give us a little bit of a higher bounce. And I don't know how high we can go. Even a rally back to, say, 420 or 425, I think uncovers a lot of selling. I think there's a lot of producers that were waiting for higher prices that never materialized. And now that this window of opportunity for marketing and this growing season is starting to shut, they're going to look at any small rallies, 10, 15 cents, as opportunities to go ahead and sell, try and get short in the market. So I just can't imagine that, whatever news we throw at this market is going to be able to sustain a rally at this time of year. Now, there is markets, I think, that are showing life that could rally. That's Kansas City wheat. If you look at, we completed the harvest of Kansas City wheat, and we put the spreads out to full carry. Farmer selling has really dried up on the front months. They sold a little bit right off the combines or cleaned out bin space and then put everything under storage. So now you're starting to see September contracts, the old crop contracts, the front month contract start to gain a little bit, and we see that evidenced by some of the spread trades. And that's an indication that probably the worst of the selling is behind this market. So we haven't seen that in corn, certainly haven't seen that in soybeans. Those spreads are still widening out, still pushing farther out into full carry, telling us that there's probably more selling pressure yet to come longer term in these markets.
And we keep working trade back into the conversation here. EU deal, a UK deal, we're still talking with China deal, Indonesia, I guess we've got an Indonesia, but looks like India now is off on the sidelines. How does this conversation about trades and possible trade deals and lack of trade deals, how does that hit a market, let's say, like soybeans?
It creates a lot of uncertainty when we don't have a lot of the answers, or even if we hear that there's a trade agreement reached, we don't hear any of the details about what was agreed upon. So it creates so much uncertainty that, people don't really know what to make with the news. The fact that has really just pushed the mindset away from being focused on maybe increasing demand. They're just focused on supply right now. And so we're looking at how big is this crop going to be? Is it 52.5 bushels? Has it grown? Is it going to get bigger? And how much larger is it going to be? Same thing for corn, same mentality. We're looking at how big is this crop? How much larger can it get? Will it get even bigger as we go into the month of August? Just kind of ignoring some of this demand factors. Now, if we do reach an agreement with China and it's announced, I think that could give us a pop in the market. Those are things that we'd be looking for that could potentially give us a nice rally for producers to sell into. At this point in time, it's probably not something that would sustain a rally because there's a lot of selling that wants to take place. But if we get into harvest and in the middle of harvest, maybe we can sustain a rally off of that type of news because we won't be as focused on the supply. We'll have more handle on how big the crop actually is because we'll have some harvesting being done already.
You know, we talk about trade. Often we talk about what we can sell to other countries, but what companies are the biggest importers from China? Any ideas? Hang on, we'll have the answer for you. This is Commodity Wrap. This is Commodity Wrap. I'm Tony St. James. Well, Wednesday, the close was mixed. We just closed the markets mixed on the row crop side. Corn higher, beans lower, mixed for wheat, with Kansas City higher, the other two in the red. Cotton market was lower as well. Okay, to the livestock sector, live cattle, feeder cattle higher. Both of those now 4 consecutive closes higher. And the hog trade was higher with August back in the red. But that's the protein side of this. Our special guest is Brian Hoops. Brian is President, Midwest Market Solutions. Okay, we did see some dress sales at $3.85. I think that's $5 higher than we saw the week before. What are you watching here?
Well, futures market, we're really pushing higher. Just continue to drive this market into contract highs, multi-year highs, and all the live and feeder cattle contracts. A lot of producers that want to hedge this market, they're having a hard time keeping up with the margins that is being required. So option strategies are a better way to go in this environment. You have, you're basically ensuring a price level that you're happy with. If you like November feeders at $336, for example, you can ensure that price with just one purchase, and you don't have to keep funding that account if things do continue to move higher. We've heard talk at maybe we're going to 350 in feeders or even 400 in feeders. That can get expensive on the pocketbook of a producer that is trying to hedge his inventory. So really have to watch how you're going to market this inventory that you have, how you're going to go about hedging this inventory, because it is such a volatile market. Now, surprised that the CME has not raised margin requirements very often, despite all this volatility. Cutout values continue to weaken. They're not really responding to the lower slaughter pace. That's a concern. I think we've talked about raising these flags and being concerned. I think there's reasons to be concerned because this market fundamentally looks like the cash trade is going to be higher, but yet consumers may be starting to slow down some of their consumption of beef and pork as we get past the main holidays of the growing season for the summer.
I don't have anything to back this up. It's just me sitting back wondering if the margins continue to get deeper and deeper for the packers. They have shareholders to answer to, and that's not to say that the cow-calf guy doesn't have a shareholder or two to answer to as well, or the feedlots. However, I think they're in probably the best shape to just at some point in time say, we're done, we're shutting the plants down, or we're shutting a couple of plants down here, trying to figure out how to cut our losses, at least for a moment, and reset things. Is that a crazy thought?
No, that's what's going to happen. You're absolutely right. So it's what's going to happen at some point in time, whether it's a large processor, smaller independent ones. At some point when they have these big losses, we're talking $270 a head this morning was the estimated loss on every animal that they kill. You cannot sustain that. You can't make that. It takes time to make that up. At some point, they're going to cut their kills completely, slow down their processing speeds, go to reduce kills, or even shutter the plants until they get things back under control. It's just kind of, that's how businesses work. Is at some point we will slow the change speeds enough now that these packer margins do get back in line. So unfortunately, that's probably what will happen at some point, unless the futures market has a correction that they can regain some of those margins. But we know supplies are going to remain tight, and that's not going to change anytime real soon.
Yeah, and by the way, before I get hate mail on it, I'm not suggesting that's what should happen. I'm just sitting back from what looks logical here, that could be a possibility for us moving forward. All right, Brian, if we want to continue the conversation, whether it's on the protein side, the row crop side, or even some of these outside markets, I know we can contact you one-on-one. How do we do that?
Yeah, my direct number is 417-501-5132.
Brian Hoops is president, Midwest Market Solutions. All right. We talk a lot when it comes to trade deals, and we say, well, what can we export to another country? But have you ever stopped and really thought, what companies are the biggest importers from China? Did you think Amazon? Well, Amazon's on that top 5 list. They're at number 5. Here's one you might not have thought of, though. Dole Fresh Fruit is number 4. Number 3, Costco. And if Costco's number 3, then you imagine number 2 might be Walmart, and you're right. And then IKEA is number 1. What's really interesting here, tied back to ag, that number 2 Walmart, 64% what they're pulling in are cotton fabrics. And this is Commodity Wrap.